Hey everyone, this is Rangadad. Not financial advice, it's just the way I'm looking at the market. And what a day for crypto, eh? Wasn't looking that crazy when did the video yesterday, but it is what it is. Right now, this big green, this is actually a hanging man. I can't even remember which. Anyway, big ass body, really big wick. I don't think this candle's going to finish like this. I think we're going to tag potentially the daily 20 or 50, something around there, which is 101 and change. And then I suspect we might reject off that, at least a pullback. Like looking at it on the 15-minute, we are pretty overextended, and a pullback off this 800 EMA on the 15-minute, which is the 1 hour 200, that would basically align pretty well with bearish divergence on the cumulative volume delta. And obviously we've left quite a chunk of liquidity down in here. So short term, sort of talking about back into the 94, high 94s, potentially. This is a good move up, like it's a solid move up, but the volume on this last little bit is getting pretty light. It does just look like a liquidity hunt. We're getting above 3.5 standard deviations on this particular move. So it looks like it's doing a run for that 200 EMA right now. Actually, CVD might push a little higher. There is room to move. Typically, you get pullbacks somewhere after the 20 mark on this. Are normally good signs that you're getting close to the top, but at this stage, it's a tricky one. Like momentum's still to the upside. I haven't got any real signs of this stopping quite yet, but yeah, I'm expecting it to hit a bit of a ceiling. This was the top of this channel previously as well, and we did sort of break below and reconfirm that before we moved down. So this is probably going to be a pretty good area for a pullback. 101,484. If we look at liquidity, let's refresh this. Yeah, might even pull back a little bit before it. If it doesn't, like this is a pretty attractive level, 103,500-ish, which would bring us up above that a little bit. It actually aligned pretty closely with this previous support. If we claim all that in one move and reject off it, I would say that's probably the end of the bull run. If we don't reject off it, then it's actually the start of the next leg up. Like these are looking like pretty key levels around here, and looking at it on the daily, you're talking essentially getting back above this trend line here, which is a pretty major one. Like that's coming off these lows here before the pump. And it has provided some support, but at the same time, like this could just be a retest of that level. And again, this concerns me a little bit in that stock market still doesn't look great. The good thing about what I'm seeing here is stochastic momentum looks like it wants to turn back to the upside. The bad thing is we've still got 4.5 hours left on this daily candle. And if we do tag one of these levels and reject off, then that candle's and that momentum is probably going to be to the downside, and your BBWP runs the risk of expanding as well. So we could flush back down quite quickly. I would say closures above the point of control are still relatively bullish because you would be closing above this channel still. Yeah, the downside is it's a tricky one to be bullish on. Like in terms of this is just going to go straight up to the moon, new all-time highs, stuff like that. But we are clearing some pretty good levels here. So we have cleared the 200 EMA. Obviously, the 50 got cleared and broke through quite convincingly. What we don't really want to see is closures back below this 50, especially if it's below the 200 as well. That would be probably leading to further downside and at least a retest of the bottom of this channel again, which is probably going to be like the bottom of that channel is actually pretty close to the top of this channel. So point of control is going to be a key level of support. If we fail that, which we smash back through that without finding any real significant resistance, which surprised me a little bit. So it does seem like there's a fair bit of support there, but I have to wait and see because, yeah, moves like this, you know, we had something similar here. Big wick to the downside, but we did also have this big ass candle here as well, which did lead to more upside. So it's the market is being irrational, and it can stay irrational longer than we can stay solvent. So just keep that in mind. But if we move over to the NASDAQ, so I'm actually going to look at these on some shorter time frames because like NASDAQ on the hourly does look like it wants to keep going to the upside. That's kind of weird, really. We were talking about it in Discord yesterday, and I did suggest that it wouldn't surprise me if the market actually opened up in the positive just because of the sell-off through the day. A positive move up on the open would wipe out a lot of shorters. It's pretty well gone up the whole day, though. So we've got a couple more hours left. Be interesting to see if it finds some resistance at the gap close. If that's all we do today, we just close the gap. It'd be geared for more downside. The other thing is the advanced decline line. Where's my advanced decline line gone? There. Back to daily, sorry. So the advanced decline line is starting to cross moving averages. So that's not a great sign. it may do something just like this, but or even that. It could do it. I'll have to wait and see. But it's not looking fantastic at the moment. I'd like to see a turnaround in the advanced decline line before I started getting really bullish on the overall stock market. Yeah, so it's the same with the S&P 500. I mean, closure above this level would be quite positive, and we could easily see a retest of this trend line here. But you want to be breaking through that trend line to be really bullish. Momentum is still squarely to the downside, but BBWP is decreasing as well. So, and like looking at this, there was another trend line here that's kind of finding some buyers off. So overall, we could just range for a little bit, and sort of a choppy sideways range could be accumulation for the next leg up. Do I think that's the case? Not really. Equal weight S&P 500 found some support off that level, which that's actually a relatively bullish setup because that's basically a W pattern reconfirmed. If this continues to the upside, then the rest of the market is probably going to follow, and crypto will likely follow. Now, Trump said that he's putting tariff talks on hold for a month with Mexico, and the market's probably using that as the excuse to go up. But at this stage, we haven't really cleared any key levels. It looks more like a gap close than anything else at the moment. IWM's back into this range as well. It couldn't clear that. It couldn't hold that that proper support. So IWM's actually looking pretty shaky at the moment. I think we're going to draw a trend line to try and provide some support. It's going to be something probably around there, just because we haven't actually closed below that. So a closure below that, IWM's probably going to go a lot further down. Now, it could actually find some support somewhere around that. So another 1 or 2 days down and a bounce is still on the cards. Do I think that's going to happen? Geez, triple Q's equal weights actually. That's had a big day, but it looks like potentially just trying to recover this vector candle. I'd still expect some resistance for the triple Q's equal weight around here. Again, BBWP is dropping, but so's momentum. At the moment, I don't think we're going to get any proper resolution in terms of actionable direction on this until we see what tomorrow does. But yeah, look, NASDAQ is still below that key trend line. Momentum is still to the downside. It does have some support further down if it does come down a bit more. A really good level for support is going to be 20,600-ish. There is a gap fill below that at 20,200. So it may actually, if we do get a quick sort of sell-off, that will be an interesting level to find a bounce. But at this stage, like shorter time frames, it looks okay, but it's going to run into a fair bit of resistance here, I think. And maybe a retest of this this trend line up to about 21,600. But then I suspect there's going to be pullbacks from there. Daily. So again, KRE is slipping and it's struggling to fill that gap. That doesn't look great. That's actually BBWP is resetting on KRE. So there is a gap fill here as well, which was an island reversal. So KRE is looking weak. ITB is looking weak. So home construction is coming down again. That's not a good sign. In fact, I would say if home construction fails this trend line, there's going to be a bigger correction in the works. I wonder if that goes down into there. Close. Let's just leave it at that for the time being. Actually, I won't leave it like that because it's worthwhile noting that that could potentially be a head and shoulders pattern play out. Anyway, that's home construction and home builders. It's not good signs for them at the moment. Not at all. Actually, let's put this on there. This will probably be the difference between just like a correction and a recession, I'd say, that line. Potentially. There's some interesting levels. Getting into pretty key sort of areas for this. Just give me one. All right. Semiconductors still not looking great. Still momentum's down with high BBWP. I'd kind of expect that to at least retest this level, but at the moment it seems to want to find support a little bit higher up, which is close to the top here. I'm going to leave that there. But it could, I mean, semis looks like it's getting close to its bottom. Just once we're in that bearish control zone, it could sit there for a while. Like we could be sitting at this level here, which is roughly where it was before it crashed pretty hard. DJI gold is still holding up. DJT gold did break through that level though. Like that's a pretty key level, really. That's indicating that there should be a bigger sell-off and like something bigger coming. Start of April, we had a similar sort of breakdown of a previous support level. Back in October 23, we had the same and it sold off more over the coming weeks. This one here, March 23, that was actually getting close to the bottom, but yeah, it's not a great signal for markets. Dow Jones Transport got some support off a highly traded zone, but DJI looks like it's double topping. Like that's not a good look. What would that be? Let's call this a double top. Potential to come back in below 39,000, which from the top would be about 13%. So that's interesting because everyone's kind of expecting a 10% drop, and I suspect this first one will probably be more like 15%. But yeah, you could say the same thing about S&P 500 as well. If we don't find support at that little box that I got drawn there, then yeah, let's have a look what that works out to be roughly. Yeah, about 10%. So, I mean, we've got some support here where we're in a bit of a channel. We could still keep going to the upside. It's just the indicators are screaming no. The only thing there is the equal weight, which has been a pretty good indication of where things are headed. It has found a bit of support here. I just don't think it'll necessarily hold that. Could do, but at the moment, this seems like an intraday dead cat bounce almost. VIX. So VIX, yeah, it's spiked, come back down. Yeah. It's kind of a nothing read on that at the moment. I wouldn't draw too many conclusions either way. The one thing I pointed out yesterday was the skew actually ticked up, which was the only real suggestion that we were potentially going to get some buying today. It'll be very interesting to see where this sits at the end of the day. If that pulls back, then I would expect red on the markets tomorrow. A move up on the 1 day volatility just means that we probably haven't found the bottom yet. Like to see this spike and then reject. Like we're spiking up into this level here, or even further. Like that would be a pretty good suggestion that we've found a decent bottom. But at this stage, again, it's kind of a nothing read on that. The fact that it's moving up still is suggestive that downside is likely. The DAX has pulled back, big gap down. Again, markets will probably try and close that gap if they do want to pull back further, unless it's just a temporary pullback, like pullbacks into this level and then a move back up. Totally fine. Is that likely to happen? I have to wait and see. Looks like Chinese market was back yesterday. Not super strong there, but it's holding that trend line for the time being. UK market had a decent pullback. Is downside likely? I'd say yes. Like that's bearish divergence on the stochastic momentum. It's ticking to the downside. You might see vector candle recovery going on, but until momentum actually ticks to the upside, I'd suggest longs are going to have to be short-lived. Treasuries are pulling back. High yield junk got absolutely smashed. That there is a sign that the bonds market expects a bigger pullback, I think. It did get smashed right into a fairly key level, though. That has provided a fair bit of support, that level. So if we have another down day on that, break through that level, then again, that's a negative sign for the markets. But at the moment, like at the same time, that could find support there. Just draw that line in. That's probably a pretty good level for it there. Okay, so I just move that up slightly into that level. So yeah, at the moment, bonds market didn't like what it was seeing, but it's at key support. This indicator here is probably more giving you an idea of where we may go. I think another couple of days to get this down into this trend line and then move away would make a lot of sense, freak a lot of people out. It's just it has to hold that line for the pullback to be only fairly temporary. If it doesn't hold that line, then the markets will be like that 10 to 15% is on the cards. Yields. So the 2 years actually retested that again. It's actually sitting just above that trend line now. So yields moving up will make it hard for the stock market to go up. 10 years kind of rejecting that trend line. Trend lines are a region though, so got to be a bit careful with that because it has crossed the upside. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, stochastic momentum's crossing to the upside there, so it's one to be careful of. So China bonds are back tomorrow. Again, I think when China comes back, it'll probably affect the markets a little bit, see which way they're going. Good support for copper though. Like if copper has a follow through day and breaks this trend line, that's a really good base for it to bounce off. And that would suggest the economy is, or the market's happier with the economy than what you might think. Gold is probably going to break through here. If it doesn't, I'd expect probably another retest of this level. It may actually just find some support up in this area here around 2760 to 2790. Interestingly, to get up to the 3000 mark, which I think's everyone's target pretty much, you're probably looking 18th of Feb-ish if we follow a similar trajectory, maybe out to the 24th, sort of last week of Feb area. I would expect it to get some rejection from there, but I'd also expect this to be providing support. And one thing to remember was that breakout of these consolidation areas has led to, or has preceded most decent market crashes, like 2008, stuff like that were after key breakouts on gold. Let's go back. Just here, I think. Yeah, so July 07, 08. Depends where you call the breakout. Like that was a bit of a blow off top there, but a break of that level, September 07. I think gold just kept mooning basically. It did sell off March 08, but it never really closed back below that level. So I'd be looking at this in a pretty similar vein at the moment. Where's the 2000s? 2000s were a little bit different. Pretty well everything sold off in the dot-com bust. Gold led the recovery though. Anyway, so it's worthwhile keeping an eye on. Gold could break through that 3,000 level this year quite convincingly, but for the time being, still bullish on gold. Silver's going okay. I'd like to see it beat that resistance there at 32, and then we should get a decent run on silver breaking out of this range. Oil's basically just gone between these two trend lines today. Momentum is switching to the upside, but BBWP is low, so potentially back up into this level for resistance. Yeah, it's no real read on this one until it breaks one of these trend lines, I'd say. Everything's kind of in choppy indecision mode at the moment. Dixie, I do actually expect Dixie to probably break the 110 mark. It might get some resistance off this trend line. If it does hit that and reject, then the stock market could quite easily go up. So you're looking again at another couple of days of potential up on Dixie, down on stocks. And then we find a bottom and we start to move to those highs in sort of March, April that we were looking at. That's not a read yet. So Mag 7's pulling back a bit, mainly because of Tesla. Tesla's at a pretty critical level there as well, but it looks like it wants to break down from there. It does have quite a bit of support in around the 345 to 355 area. But momentum is squarely to the downside and BBWP is increasing. So potential pullback on Tesla is actually into the 297 mark. And it could be that, some bad news. Honestly, earnings weren't great. Like that's a pretty bad miss. It was only Elon's speech that really kept the market high. I think Tesla probably will pull back quite hard. $300 on Tesla is not out of the question, which would drag the rest of the market down as well. Nvidia is still, that's a pretty good support off the value area low. I do expect it'll try and get down to this trend line though. And that's a good level to bounce off. I don't see that as signs that it's actually turned around properly yet. Another day of up into the point of control and then rejection is on the cards as well. So it's going to be choppy. Like predicting long-term moves, Microsoft confirming below that level is not ideal. Microsoft will probably come back down further. Needs to find some support at 388-ish. Might come down to 383. That they're pretty critical levels for Microsoft, I would say. If it gets back above that trend line tomorrow, then crisis averted, I would say. Apple, I mean, it got rejected hard off that level. Doesn't look like it wants to hold this support either, but doji there, vector candle above. Yeah, Apple may pull back a little further. Momentum's to the downside. BBWP still high. Apple's probably coming back a little bit further. So it's going to be like the key with all this. It's looking choppy. Meta, that's a pretty good day for Meta, but it's really just, I guess, soaking up as much liquidity as it can at the high. It could keep running from here. Momentum is still to the upside, but I don't know how much it's got left in it. Looking at that, maybe another day or two. Just trying to get some sort of read off some of these. What's that one? AMD. Wow, AMD's got a pretty significant trend line it needs to break there, and some support below. So AVGO. Yeah, that's a massive island reversal. AVGO could actually make its way up and close that gap before earnings. Kind of expect earnings to bring that down though. SML. So there's no like massive read on any of these. They're all in no man's land. A lot of them have come down into key areas and found support, which is good, but not really sort of recovered key areas at the same time. So it's hard to say really what'll happen next. The Aussie market is, I suspect, going to keep coming down. Yeah, that's a good bounce, but let's see, momentum's not in its favour there, especially with a big double vector rejection there off the high. The other thing I've been looking at, so this is actually a pretty good close for stablecoins versus Bitcoin. This is, if it closes here below this trend line, then chances are we're actually going on a bigger run on Bitcoin. If we pull back up in the next 4 hours and close above that, then I'd be leaning more towards downside on BTC. This is another way of looking at it too. So I just done it based on stablecoins, the three main stablecoins versus total crypto market cap. That looks a little bit more nasty. And if I had been looking at this, you get a pretty clear rejection off that trend line before this pullback. So the fact we're closing below this 800 EMAs, that is a good sign. And it was vector candle recovery here, but we've also left a vector candle. So it's anyone's guess at the moment. But this looks a lot more nasty than the other one. The only thing in our favor here is that stochastic momentum has switched back to the downside on this. So that could lead to further moves to the upside on Bitcoin. I would expect it to have some resistance around this trend line though. So if it gets rejected off this, then Bitcoin will probably, we'll get recovery of this vector candle and Bitcoin will probably come back down to the same sort of level it reached yesterday. The other thing was, we looked at these yesterday. Obviously, it didn't have that gigantic wick to the downside. And these were just a sidebar kind of thought, these vector candles. but yeah, DeFi is getting slammed. Excluding the top 10, alts are getting hammered. Interesting, we got back up to the 200, sorry, the 800 there on the daily, and seem to be pulling back a little bit from that. Everything excluding BTC and ETH, it got slammed. Pretty decent level for a bounce there, though, too. A little bit of consolidation in here on the way up. Yeah, I don't expect us to leave this week here and just keep going to the moon, like breaking all-time highs on these things. I think at this stage, I have a feeling that alts are going to start to be valued like actual businesses. And that's going to change crypto quite a bit. You're still going to have the gambling side of it and the pump.fun side of things, but I think expectations on returns on those things, unless you're in very early, are going to be pretty shit. It's just all that, like, these are suppressed. One, because like this is a sign that there's just not as much retail interest. There's not as much money floating around in the crypto market. The downtrend on these things, on the alts, just like, it's not just a throw money at anything and price go up like we had in the last cycle. You've got to actually have a really good use case. You've got to have good tokenomics, and you've got to have a business around it to actually last. And I think this has drained a lot of people, and a lot of liquidity's come out of the market because of that. Just the fact you were making quite lower highs when Bitcoin was making higher highs. That's kind of the way I'm looking at it at the moment. And relative to Bitcoin, I think alts in general are still going to bleed a bit. Yeah, interesting bounce off that 800 EMA there, and key consolidation area for total crypto market cap. So we're back above this line. If we're breaking below that line, then we're entering the bear market. At this stage, in fact, probably below this week now, probably below that 200, sorry, the 800 EMA on the daily. So ETH versus BTC longs, these guys are still at it. Masochists. BTC USD longs. So this was a good sign. Plenty of dip buying. So that's good. Need to see that continue, but especially if BTC is still going up, you want to see this continue to climb. If that happens, if we get another day of BTC up and another day of up on BTC USD longs, then I'd be fairly comfortable that it's actually going to keep going. But if we start to see this plateau and BTC rejects, then I'd suggest we're going deeper. ETH versus BTC, yeah, it's just getting hammered. These guys are loading up on it though, so maybe they know something we don't. ETH dominance is getting pounded as well, whereas BTC dominance is breaking new highs. Although it looks like it does want to come down, so yeah. Momentum's definitely showing us something different to the actual chart there. We could get a little mini alt season here. a lot of money has flooded back into alts, not necessarily ETH. ETH still sucks. I just increased the range on this volume profile. Interesting sort of level, the value area high there. But yeah, we've broken down that level. ETH needs to have a good couple of days, and I don't necessarily see that happening right now. It's one of the reasons why I'm leaning towards more sideways and down on crypto at the moment. Might have a bit of support around that level. But yeah, with the previous one that I had on here, it was just from the breakout. That's where we were struggling with that point of control. We're well below value area low here. Yeah, it's not looking great. CME has filled the gap. That's quite a decent gap fill too. It hasn't actually rejected off that yet. That's a little surprising. CME BBWP is flatlining as well. So CME ticks the upside and BBWP expands, then new all-time high. I got no problem with that. If we are rejecting this trend line, it's not going to look great. That was a pretty big move though. That would have wiped out most of that liquidity. The next target above, if we keep going, the next target is that 103,500. Don't know whether it's going to do it, but that's pretty major. Actually, CVD is starting to pull back, but the move up in cumulative volume delta is pretty strong. We start to see that roll over then, and there is a lot of selling pressure at the top here. So, but it has kept moving to the upside through a lot of that. Oof, yeah, it's coming in heavy at the top. Looks like we're probably going to reject that trend line. See, 103,400, there is some decent orders up there. I don't think these guys have pulled their orders. I think that's just a refresh issue with CoinInc. Yeah. So we have soaked up a lot of pretty decent orders here. They're coming in reasonable below now as well. 14 million sitting at 100K, a bit over 100K. We have cleared the 200 EMA though. If we reject that, sorry, the 1 hour 200 EMA, if we reject that straight away within the next candle or two, then it's probably going to come back down into these areas. There's not a lot of bids in here though. There's a lot of liquidations down around 97. So that would be a target. So same thing on this one, down to around 97. It's just whether that's all the pullback we get, and whether or not we do actually bounce off the 1 hour 200 and we actually get up to the 103,500 or higher. If we're doing that, and that's a massive level. 103,500. I'm just going to have a look on the weekly. The 102,500 is probably weekly resistance. So I'd be surprised if we get up there. If we do, you'd kind of be expecting it to break a bit higher. what's monthly? So yeah, monthly open was 102,300. So yeah, 102,300, 102,500 are going to be interesting levels. They have been all the way through this range. There's been a lot of trading around that 102.5. But that liquidity at 103.5 is pretty attractive for it, the price to move into. And look, that was a fairly bullish monthly close on January. February is going to be interesting. We could still push to the upside in February once we find the bottom. Close in Feb below this point of control. So below 93, and I'd suggest bull run is over for the time being. But there have been pretty decent pullbacks in February before, and it's still closed positive. So I think it's a good thing that the pullback is happening at the start of Feb. We just don't want it to continue for too long. So hopefully markets will hurry up. General stock market will hurry up and do its pullback thing, and we can get it over and done with nice and early. Yeah, looks like it's rejecting that 50 EMA, the trend line, all that sort of stuff at the moment. The close will be the key today. Closures below that very value area high and the 200 EMA, that will suggest probably further downside. Closures above the 200 EMA and the value area high, I'd be reasonably comfortable with another attempt up into this trend line at least. All right. What else we got? Have a look at the others. So Litecoin, not really floating the boat too much there. Momentum is still to the downside on this with increasing BBWP. Solana rejected off the value area low. It is coming off a pretty low level with increasing BBWP though. So Solana's in a position where it could actually keep moving to the upside. Litecoin, on the other hand, needs another green day and decent volume. Jesus Christ, that came down. Wow. I'd almost expect Litecoin to come back into the 74s. Not necessarily straight away, but I just don't know that got as low as it probably should have in that move. XRP. So there's a couple that are showing signs of strength. So XRP is one that definitely has some buying interest. Interestingly, it bounced off that bottom of that channel there. XRP's definitely got some institutional support, I think. SUI, good buying pressure off the lows. SUI's actually bullish divergence on momentum as well. Hype was another one. Hype barely dropped. So there's a couple of these like Hype. HBAR is getting a fairly good bid as well. And it did recover these vectors here. So some of these I'm looking at going, well, okay, these are holding up a lot better. And it's generally the ones that have big institutions involved. So SUI obviously has a lot of interest from the big guys. XRP is obvious. HBAR was actually developed by, I thought it told me here. HBAR is developed by a lot of big institutions, and yeah, it's probably going to have a fair bit of support. So I'm looking at them. I'd like to see them back above the 200 and sort of confirmation that we are actually going to keep going to the upside first. But yeah, Solana lost a little bit of favor, I think, with some people, but yeah, it's going to be. Solana continues to the upside. You'd expect quite a few others to do the same. Powell, bit of buying support there as well. AI Fun. I mean, these are, that vector candle recovery was pretty good. I mean, it's hard to buy these. Like that bounce could unwind very quickly and we could be back down at 006. So basically 50% discount on where we're at right now. But yeah. Grass, a little bit of support there, but geez, it recovered a lot of these vectors in here. Carbs getting hammered. A lot of these aren't finding a great support, and they're just the ones without really the market interest at the moment. Even near was one of the darlings at the end of the last cycle. It still looks like AI is a bit of a theme. Look at that though, checks. So again, finding these ones that have had good support off the lows and haven't really dropped too far below their more recent lows, and have had sort of big bounces. Even Ondo, I think once we do confirm recovery and support, then they're going to be the ones that are getting the majority of the action. Super held pretty well, or very well, really, looking at that. Does have a trend line to get through, but it's holding. Even Lingo held the bottom trend line of this wedge. So there are some indications that like we could actually go more upside from here. And this was just a reactionary dump liquidity grab thing. It's fucking a coin flip at the moment. Fight's got a bid. Shrapnel, yeah. Gaming's not looking great. Like some of these gaming coins, just not looking great at all. That's a good vector candle recovery off Alu though. Altura's, yeah, that's not bad. So some of the alts are actually suggesting that this was a proper recovery. So you'd expect pullbacks to actually be met with buying demand. But the global macro market looks shaky still. You're watching that closely. Like at this stage, I'm expecting pullbacks from here down probably into that, potentially into the point of control. If we find support at either the value area higher than the 200 EMA or the point of control, then I think that move further up is likely. It's just to be really bullish and to be suggesting you're going to go to all-time highs, you need to clear this trend line, I think. And I don't know whether we've had enough recovery of this area yet to do that. All right, I'll stop yammering. I'll catch you later.